In Perek Lamed Ches, at the end of the Perek, the Alter Rebbe explained that there are 4 levels in fulfillment of mitzvah. He compared it to Doimim, Tzemeh, Chaim, Medaber, just like the 4 categories. Doimim has no visible life. There are people that do a mitzvah where we don't see any chayas. We don't see any excitement. All you have is the action. Then there are mitzvahs that are dibur-based mitzvahs, like brachos and davening and birchas hamazon. So these are all mitzvahs that are... So those mitzvahs are compared to tzaimeach. There's some life, there's some animation when a person speaks. When you speak, your feelings are expressed. When a person speaks, you could tell how excited they are, how much they care about it. I mean, words have some life in it. Then you have 2 levels of Ava V'yira. There's Ava V'yira Tiviyim, instinctive love for Hashem, an instinctive sense of right and wrong. And then you have a developed, a cultivated, an intellectual Ava V'yira Sichliyim. Now the Alter Rebbe, so that's what we discussed at the end of the previous Perek. Now the Alter Rebbe says, Perek Lamed Tes, Mipnei Zeh, this is the reason why Gam came, that Nikroim HaMalochim B'Shem Chayis U'Behemus. This is why the angels are called animals, cattle. That's the names, those are the names that they're given, Kidiksiv. Upnei Aryeh El Hayomin, Upnei Shur Mi'asmoil, the lion on the right, and on the left is the Shur, and these are Malochim. The Pnei HaMerkava are angels. They're Raglei HaMerkava. And they're called animals. Why? Why are they called animals? So the Alter Rebbe says, because based on what we discussed, that people serve Hashem with an instinctive love. So these malachim, their avas Hashem is instinctive, it's in their DNA. So mipnei lefi she'einam bali bechira. They don't have, it's not a choice, this is the way they're programmed. The yerosam, the avosam, he tivis lahem. It's natural. The parshas Pinchas. So obviously many people will ask, this is Sefer Shel Beinanim. We spent 38 prakim making a point out of saying that the Alter Rebbe is not here to explain questions in the Torah, and he's not here to teach us what a tzaddik is. It's very focused. This is Sefer Shel Beinanim. Suddenly, the Alter Rebbe gets involved in talking about malachim. Why is he talking about malachim? Why is he telling us that malachim are called chayas and behemoths? What's a nice pshetel over here? So the answer is that a person may turn around and say, when I serve Hashem with the programmed love, with the avativis, it's inferior.
Inferior?
It's inferior. It's a shvach connection to Hashem. In other words...
It's still in the mitzvah.
Yeah, of course. The question is, are we doing... this is what Alter Rebbe is addressing. I just want to embellish for a moment in the question, and then obviously there's an answer. Meaning, if I live my life in such a way that I don't initiate anything, but when a big event happens and I get a nice reaction, I'm like, wow, you see, I have such a good heart, right? In other words, let's say they don't work on themselves at all. Then they go to a simcha, and they're so moved by the simcha, they're like, wow, such a beautiful simcha. Someone who didn't have children for 20 years, they just had a child, and you're bubbling with joy. Say, you see, I'm a good person. I'm sameach b'simchas acherim. You see, someone else is happy. Yeah, but you didn't work for it. It's instinctive. A chassid is supposed to work on themselves. Not to be amused by the fact that they discovered that they're a nice person because they had a nice reaction to something that happened. So a person may turn around and say, wait a second, if my avos Hashem is only my natural avos Hashem, then I'm a shvacha chassid. Alter Rebbe says, wait a second. Malachim are the most, have the most intense love and awe of Hashem. They're fantastic. That's the ultimate level. And yet it's only tivis. It's programmed.
Instinctive.
It's instinctive. So don't diminish. Don't say, oh, my Avas Hashem is instinctive, so therefore it's a lesser quality. No. Even tzaddikim. V'lachein, so now v'lachein, being that, the tzaddikim, the malachim, it's instinctive. So therefore, mailes ha-tzaddikim gedei lo mehem. That's why the tzaddikim, again, this is not a sefer shel tzaddikim. The tzaddikim are on a greater level. The word madoir means where they live. In other words, there are places that we visit occasionally. The Alter Rebbe is going to explain shortly that on Shabbos and Rish Chodesh, neshamas have an aliyah. But the question is, it's like we could talk about which hotels we visited, but that's not where we live. Right? Where do you live? What does it look like? What does your apartment look like? Oh, when I travel, my hotel rooms are clean. Yeah, but what happens at home? So this mother that lived, the mother neshamas tzaddikim is ba'elam abriya.
But tzaddikim are predisposed to be tzaddikim.
They're good, very good. There's a word from the Rebbe here a little further. Mother malachim, the malachim are ba'elam hayitzirah. The Alter Rebbe mentions in the Haggadah, v'hainu b'stam malachim. This is general, stereotypical malachim. Aval yesh malachim al yonim. There are malachim who are cognizant, that are bali seichel. She'avidasom b'tchilu urchimu sichliim. Like he brings Barayim Mehem Nesham in Parshas Pinchas. She'ashnei minei chayes HaKodesh. They are tivian, predisposed, and there are sichliim. But that's a side note. The Alter Rebbe is coming to express, and this is leading up to a very strong point. What's the difference between What's the difference between the malachim and the tzaddikim? Surely the Avos Hashem of malachim are greater than the Avos Hashem of tzaddikim. He says, "Be'elam hayitzira me'ira is sham mideis of shlein seif baruch hu levadon." In Elam hayitzira, Hashem's emotions are revealed. Shehein avosei upachde v'yirosei chulu. Meaning, what does it mean? They're revealed. Elam hayitzira is the place where Hashem's emotions, Hashem's chesed, gvura, tiferes, are presented in a way that Nivroim can experience them. In Atzilus, the Esesphiris are Hashem's experience, not our experience. What is Eilam HaYetzirah? Eilam HaYetzirah is a place, is a world where Hashem's emotions can be experienced. A Nivra is able to feel love and awe of Hashem. That's what Eilam HaYetzirah. The love and awe of Hashem is presented in such a way that we can experience it. That in Eilam HaYetzirah, the six spheres, the emotive spheres, that's where they nest. Therefore, since that's what Eilam HaYetzirah is all about, that's what the malachim are dedicated to. That's what they're doing. Talmud, Yoimam Valayla Lo Yishkoitu, day and night, they're never quiet. It never dissipates. Lamed, B'yira, V'fachad, V'chulu, they're always in a state of awe. V'hainu, Kol Machne Gavriel, Shemei Asmael. V'avedes Machne Mechoel, Hiyo Ava. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say Kol Machane Mechoel. You see? He says Kol Machane Gavriel, and he doesn't say Kol Machane Mechoel. Yeah, no, because Yira is one. The sense of fear is the same by all of them. They're all completely overwhelmed. But Ava has many forms. There are many forms of Ava, so you don't say Kol Machane because there are different Avas. So what's the word I'm looking for? Plethora. There's a whole spectrum of different avos for the malachim. This is something that Rebbe's father speaks about. Avo be'elam abriya. But when we talk about elam abriya, that's the olam of bria. Meir is sham chachmasi uvinasi v'daite shalein sev baruch hu. What is olam abriya? It is the place. We give an example all the time, with the Rav and Talmud, that when the Rav is thinks about, considers, when the Rav considers the Talmud, he adjusts what he says. That's the difference between Atzilus and Bria. Fantastic tzimtzum. In order for Hashem in order for Ein Sof, for Oyer Ein Sof to contain Chochmah, to be in a package of Chochmah, it requires a tremendous tzimtzum. But it's still God's wisdom. That's Atzilus. Eilam Abriya is the packaging for the human being. How's the human being going to experience? Like it says in Zayar, the Eima Ilah, which is Bina, Mekanana, where does it nest? Betlas Sfiron, in its three spheres, meaning Chochmah, Bina, Das, Bekarsaya, in the world of the Kisei, Shehu Eilam Abriya, Vilachain. Since Eilam Abriya is the place where Hashem's Chochmah, Bina, Das are revealed, who modern Neshamas HaTzadikim, Eivdei Hashem bitchilu urechimu anim shachis mirabina v'das v'gdulas ein sev baruch hu. Those tzaddikim Hashem is always on their mind. They're always finding Hashem. They're always thinking about Hashem. Their whole experience is serving Hashem. It's all in. Their seichel is involved. They're learning. They're thinking. They're meditating. So that's the world of Bria.
Just a simple person, he's thinking about Hashem all day, even though
he's not so intelligent.
Yeah, he hasn't great haskalah, but he thinks about Hashem all day.
Yeah. So the question is, can there be payers of emotion based on that? If it could produce emotion, then the answer would be yes. You don't have to be intelligent. You have to. In other words, a moichendige person doesn't necessarily mean that they're smart.
Today you.
Yeah.
It was Tzemach Tzedek and son of Rabbi Moshe Zalman both as the same question about when it says Torah, Rashi explained it's Midas. So the answer is because Torah and Midas connected.
That the learning and the midas. Yeah, but here this point is that there are people, in other words, in all the different blends and combinations of people, there are brilliant people who are extremely emotional. And there are people who aren't bright, but they're still, they operate with seichel. It's an interesting type of person, but there are such people. They're not so smart, but they do things methodically. Right? They don't act from emotion. They act from.
Could be IQ. Could be something else.
Emotional intelligence. Yeah. Well. So she'avazu nikra reusa de liba canal. In the Zohar, this ava is referred to as reusa de liba. Right? The kind of emotion that's driven by intellect. Ume reusa de liba, says the Alter Rebbe, this ava is nasa levush leneshama ba'elam abriya. This type of love for Hashem, it enwraps the person. It becomes like a hazmat suit, allowing the neshama access to Eilam Abriya. The light in Eilam Abriya is so fantastic, you need sunglasses. You can't be exposed directly. So this type of love becomes a protective shield that allows you to experience Eilam Abriya. It says that the Rambam, in Chassidus it's brought that the Rambam was masik till Eilam Abriya. Meaning not that he didn't know of Keser, but that his that was his mother. Like as a living person, he experienced Eilam Habriya. Shehu Gan Eden Elyon. This suit, this levush, allows you to enter Gan Eden Elyon, Kedelakamon, like will be brought. Mishkosu Bezer Vayaka. Chaynu Dafke Neshamas Mamish. This is only to the level neshama of the tzaddik. Every person's neshama is a composite of nefesh, ruach, neshama. The neshama is the highest part of the neshama. Shehim bechinas meichin legadlos ein seif baruch hu. That the neshama part is the intellectual part. Aval bechinas haruach shel tzaddikim, their emotional side. V'chein sha'ar kol neshamas Yisrael, all the other Jews, she'avdu es Hashem b'tchilu u'rechimu hamasutares belev klolis Yisrael, that served Hashem with the natural, instinctive love which is there in the heart of every person, which they awakened and served Hashem with. Says that. However, they don't ascend to Eilam Habriya rak b'Shabbos v'Reish Chodesh levad. On Shabbos and on Reish Chodesh, all servants of Hashem with emotion are oile to Eilam Habriya. Derech ha'amud. The concept of the amud is brought in the Zohar. Like you would say, it's like a spiral staircase in a closet. You know, it's some type of mechanism. Shemiganed natachten leganed na elyon. Shu Eilam Habriya, hanikra ganed na elyon. These neshamas ascend there lehisaneg al Hashem, to enjoy godliness, to have pleasure, v'leihonis miziv hashchina, right? To enjoy a ray of the Shechina. What's the Alter Rebbe saying? A human being's experience of joy is only with something that they comprehend, that they fully experience. If a person is left in doubt, if there's mystery, they're unsatisfied. Satisfaction comes from hasaga, when you understand. So he says, Ki ein hanoah v'tainug l'seichel nivra, elo b'masha maskil u'mevin v'yodeya u'masig b'sichli u'vinasei. When a person fully grasps, when they could wrap their mind around something completely, that's where the true joy is. Right? In other words, if you tell someone part of a story, it leaves them, something's missing. It's like they can't rest. Whatever they can process by the gilui in Bria. Now the Alter Rebbe asks a question. 1 second. The Alter Rebbe classified Eilam Habriya is the Eilam HaSeichel. Eilam HaYetzira is the world of emotion. Those people who only serve Hashem from natural emotion, why do they get to be Eilah to Eilam Habriya? Why on Reish Chodesh do they get a pass? How are they deserving? What gives them the right to enter into Gan Eden HaElyon? So he says, Uma shezeichis neshames elu. La les lamayla me'amalachim. Why do these souls ascend higher than the malachim if their mode of avodah is the same? Af she'ovdu b'dchilu urechimu tiviyim levad. They're also only working off of instinct. Says the Alter Rebbe, mipnei. And here comes to your point. Because they're a human being. And when they serve Hashem with love, iskafia sitra achra. There's another variable. There's another element here. They have a Yetzer Hara. When they serve Hashem, it's not just the motivation to do the right thing. They're also fighting temptation. They're silencing, they're keeping contained their nefesh havahamis, hamelubeshes begufam. And that work, that struggle is bebebchina meira. In other words, we are tempted to do things that we may not. And we are always pushing those things away. Lichbeish hatayvis ulashabron, to break the temptation. And then, ubein b'bchinas v'asei toiv, we have laziness, we're not in the mood. There are things that get in the way of doing the right thing. It's not so easy. So every time a person does something right, even though it's based on instinctive love, it's like, I know that I have to do this. I know that it's the right thing. Doesn't make it easy.
Are they still serving Hashem in the Chilul Tivin?
Yes.
Or are they gone to a higher level?
It's still Tivin.
And on Rosh Chodesh and it goes up. Is that when they're learning and they're on that level? Or
No, just in the Zman.
Because it could be different chol. They could be doing
Yeah,
something else.
yeah, just in the Zman.
Or not when they're doing the Veras, obviously.
Right. He says, yeah, Vehem hoyu bali bechira. Right? Hashem gave us a choice. Livcher berachas v'sholem ubocharu b'toiv. Where does bechira happen? Bechira is intellectual. In the modern world, we like to talk about this as the pause, right? When a person has an impulse to do something, so there's a pause. You press the pause button, and the Yutzfir is the Bria. Aydei tchilu rechimu sichlim. Ubi Yutzfir is the Yetzirah. Aydei tchilu rechimu tivim. Meaning, thank you. Meaning, the center of every world is the Eser Spheres. The Eser Spheres at the core are Oiris. The light of the Eser, like, how would we describe something becoming one with something else? You have a good mashal for it?
Flame of fire connected to lava.
It just becomes one. So good. Right? So there's no mitzias. It's not an independent mitzias. When you do a mitzvah, it's like you light a flame, and it becomes completely one with the makar or. And then what he says, it's a very interesting thing. The mashal with the lava, the fire that you light doesn't contribute anything. But here with mitzvahs, your mitzvah boosts the makar. The elikus becomes intensified. And that's why in Gan Eden, when we have Hanoah from Elikus, we're actually enjoying our own Torah mitzvahs. Because we expanded, we brought growth to the energy in that world. So every person, depending on what kind of mitzvah we did, that's our Gan Eden. If our mitzvahs were in Elam HaYetzirah, so we're in Gan Eden HaTachton. And then we experience the godliness of that world. It's right. Uveteichon mulubashes in the Esespheres of Yetzirah are Yutzfiris Da'atzilus. Yuchadis ben betachlis, they're completely one with Hashem. And the Yutzfiris Da'atzilus are Yuchadis betachlis b'ma'atzilan ein seif baruch hu, with their elikus. Mashenken aneshamis einan nechlalis be'elikus the Yutzfiris. The neshamas are not, in other words, the neshamas are a metzias. Every neshama is an independent being. Every neshama is an entity. It's having an experience. Ela eimdeis be'echalis u'medurin debriya eyetzira v'nen in miziv ashchina hu erein sof baruch hu amiyuchad b'yotzfiris debriya eyetzira v'uziv terasam avidasam mamish. They're literally experiencing their own Torah mitzvahs. Ayin zeir v'yakal dafrishud ki schar mitzvah hi mitzvah atzma. Without Chassidus, the meaning of schar mitzvah hi mitzvah is that the reward of a mitzvah geireres mitzvah. So when you do a good thing, what's going to be the reward? Another mitzvah. This mitzvah is going to bring you to do another mitzvah. But the Chassidish translation is that schar mitzvah, the mitzvah itself is going to be the greatest reward.
Is it the mitzvah in the next world, or the mitzvah in doing another mitzvah in this world?
The schar of this mitzvah itself becomes one with Hashem. And then you will have hanoah from that mitzvah itself.
In this world.
In Gan Eden. In Gan Eden, that's your hanoah from that mitzvah itself. The mashalim that are the stories that are written as analogies for this are right there. They're cheesy, That's like a cheesy mashal. But just like the Gemara says that the Chachamim were walking and they saw a person clearing his field from rocks, and he was throwing the rocks onto the road, and they said, "Why are you throwing the rocks from a space that's not yours to a space that's yours?"
Okay.
No, that's what they said. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So why? Because the field that you own right now, you may lose, but the common area, that you'll always. The common area that belongs to all of us. That's we share that, right? Like in an apartment building, your apartment today it's yours, tomorrow it won't be yours, but the always, that's always we always share. And then the Gemara says that at some other time he lost the field and whatever, and time passed, and one day he was walking by and he tripped on one of the stones that he put there. So that's in the side of shlila, right? Now think of it in the positive sense, right? Like the Maisa with Rabbi Akiva's wife, the night that she got married, that she put her, was it Rabbi Akiva? No, who was it? That Rabbi Akiva's daughter, that she put her pin in the wall, right? And then in the morning, a snake,
Was killed as a snake.
right? But the pin had killed a snake, so it saved her life, right? Like this idea that a person puts things in place, right? It's like some years ago, someone, they did a story, there was a news story, that Mr. Heimlich, from the Heimlich maneuver, was in a restaurant, and he was elderly, and he started choking, and someone did the Heimlich maneuver on Mr. Heimlich, and saved his life. And then they said, oh, it was a bogus story. It was right, but in concept, that's what we're saying. That you do a mitzvah.
Paid for.
But how you
But let's see if we could. Ve'elu ma'atzilus. Shula ma'ila me'aseichel v'hasaga v'avona l'seichel nivra. Atzilus, which is beyond human comprehension, because it's the infinite form of Hashem's wisdom. Ki chachma se'obina se'vidat she'nitzaif baruch hu miyuchadis sham bay betachlis hayichud. They're completely one with Hashem. Beyichud atzum v'nifla, like we discussed when we learned Torah in Parshas. No, where is it? Chayesara? No, in Parshas Va'era. Yeah. In other words, when remember when I always use this example from Rabbi Yoel. When you tell someone in what language do you think, it's an appropriate question. But if you ask someone in what language does he understand, right? Not in what language do you understand, right? Either you understand or you don't understand. It's not what language you understand. In Atzilus, Hashem's wisdom, it's not in what language. It's Him. It's miyuchad. The chachma of Hashem is completely one. So it's a yichud atzum b'yeser seis v'yeseraz la'in ketz mebeil ma'briya. It's incomparable to the chachma in bria. Kisham in olam abriya yordu lahoyer. The purpose of chachma and bina in bia is that we humans should be able to experience them.
That's already the Torah going down.
Yeah.
Now you're going back up. You don't have to go down to come back up. Just stay up. That's the.
No, he's contrasting. Sheyuchlu sichlim nivroim lekabel me'en Chabad leidas Hashem ulahavin ulahasig.
But the language before that is not language. That's the source. Whatever that is, that's what the Neshama is experiencing it at that so to speak language. But it's not a language that comes on.
Right.
It's here.
It's experiencing it.
It's concentrated. It's before it had to get
yeah.
digressed.
So Leida es Hashem, ulahovin, ulahasig, eze asara beidin sabaruch v'koyach sichle manevroim. That a created being should be able to understand Hashem. A created being, shehem balik vulva tachlis. And in order for a Baal Tachlis, in order for a finite being to experience a likus, it has to be bite-sized. Otherwise we'd be annihilated. We get overload. People who experience certain things that are beyond their kelim, it's impossible, they go into shock. This tzimtzum from Atzilus to Bria, he sibas ha'ara. That's the cause of the diminished state. Shemeir is sham chabat shlein so baruch hu l'nesham eseilu ba'elam ha'bria. Mashenkim ba'Atzilus. She'eino b'bchinas tzimtzum kol kach. In Atzilus, of course, we went from pshitus, we went from a devoid energy, from a completely blank slate, without any hagbolas, pure infinity, we became chokhmah. But it's still not such a tzimtzum. She'einu b'chinas tzimtzum kol kach. Yeah, so it's impossible to sichlim nevroim lakabel mehem. Right? I also use this example occasionally in the shir. Fire has a sense of infinity. Because you can light as many candles from one flame. The source doesn't get diminished. Dibur is also infinite. You could talk without an end. You're not losing weight by speaking. Nothing's being emptied from the source. It's not like if we open your brain, something's going to be missing because you spoke.
Yeah, but dibur to begin with is separate from the brain. It's not.
Or whatever part of the body.
No, but it's not.
As teachers,
It's the fire also. The fire also. Essentially, the fire is the fire.
No,
Most of the time, you're talking about the fire. You're using the source, the fuel of the fire, and the fire as one. But the fire also, without the fuel, is not
Right,
not able
but
to.
one second, what?
From the fire
The
itself.
nimshul, what's the nimshul?
The nimshul doesn't lose.
That fire is Ein Sof fire. And Dibur is Ein Sof Dibur.
Okay.
But to be Ein Sof, Ein Sof.
Right, the fact that it's dibur, it's not Ein Sof.
To be Ein Sof of all different things.
Right, it's dibur. It's not.
In other words, what is Atzilus is infinity in each category. It's Ein Sof fire, Ein Sof Dibur, but it's not Oir Ein Sof is Ein Sof of everything. It's not Ein Sof of one type.
Yeah, but the fact that it's Ein Sof.
That's why I'm just giving that mashal. That of the Ein Sof fire and the Ein Sof Dibur. And Atzilus, there's Ein Sof Chochmah, there's Ein Sof Bina. But Oir Ein Sof is Ein Sof of everything. Not in one category. That's why in Atzilus we cannot be masig, because it's Hashem's wisdom. Lachein hu mother letzadikim agdolim. There are such tzadikim. Here we're she'aveidosam. Their avedus Hashem ilamayla mayla afilu mebchinas dechilu urechimu. Their avodah is higher than our v'yira hanim shochis min abina v'das b'gdilosi yizbarich. Their avodah is a bittul avodah, not a love and awe avodah. K'moi she'elu ma'atzilus ulamayla mayla b'mchinas bina v'das l'seichel nivra. El avedosam. What's their avodah? Hoysa b'mchinas merkava mamish. They're like a chariot. They dedicate themselves completely. Le'ein Sof Baruch Hu, v'libatal elav b'metzias, u'lehikolel ba'eiri yizbarech heim, v'chol asher lohem, everything that belongs to them, they give themselves entirely to the Eibishter. Al yedei kiyum ha'torah v'ha'mitzvos. Al derech she'omru, like we say, ha'aves hein hein amarkava, they were the divine chariot. V'hainu lefi, she'kol yemeim, hoysa, zeis, avidosam, this was their avodah their whole life. Someone whose sheirish haneshama it doesn't have the power to be at the level of a tzaddik. To always be entirely bottled completely to Hashem. Only occasionally.
Remember Rebbe brought this. Odek Tobit is not Odek. Odek Tobit is not Odek.
Einek Midi, yeah?
So it's the same thing. If a person always bittul, it's not bittul.
Why? In other words, Einek is in the highest part of the
but Einig
nefesh.
and Bittul is two different
Bittul is in the lowest part.
Bittul, you can always have it. That's what Bittul is. If it's always Einig, then you're not having Einig. The whole purpose of Einig is that it's different from a regular, like you're enjoying, but it's an Einig. It's like,
You have contrast.
but
Here,
Bittul,
person is always flat. So
no, but
Yeah.
that's a Bittul. That's the reality of it. Then you're always Bittul. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? But it's Bittul. At the end of the day,
So it's not into bittul, it's always bittul.
he's being Bittul.
He's
He's not Bittul. If he was Bittul, if he didn't exist, then you're right. He doesn't exist. But he's constantly being Bittul.
There's a word from the Rebbe here also about the Rebbe he defines that he doesn't explain what motivates the tzaddikim. He just says that it's bittul. He doesn't define the Ava V'yira, what kind of Ava V'yira it is. So the Rebbe says because the Alter Rebbe is just trying to speak about the Poyel Yoitze. What's the outcome? He's not trying to define
Can't give away the secrets.
the level. He's trying to, how it affects them. How do they live? Oh, they're bottled. Kihi inyan bittul ba'eri is barech li is chashiv. I'm sorry, I skipped the line. K'mei b'tfilah shmeina esrei. Shehi ba'atzilis. Ubifrat b'shtachavo es shabo, when you bow. Shekol ishtachavo, hi b'bchinas atzilis. That kind of bittul, k'mei shekazu pri etz chaim about Kabbalah Shabbos. Ki inyan bittul ba'eri is barech li is chashiv kamei kala mamish, that a person, he has no interests. Legabe the Eibishter. Whatever the Eibishter wants, that's it. Azai gamkein iker klias nishmasi ba'elam abriya, and liprokim be'es rotzen, his neshama will ascend to Atzilas, b'chinas ma'inukvin, ki yudu aliyah dechein, so there are tzaddikim on the higher level. Okay, now, there are two more points to the end of the well. Let's see. We're trying to cover ground. Okay, we're ready? I said, it's hard to stay awake. It's hard to stay awake when it's just the words of it from inside. Schar mitzvah mitzvah. Pirush, the Alter Rebbe has a goal here. Shemischara neida mohusa madrigasa. By looking at the Gan Eden part, we'll understand the performance part. Ein lanu esek b'nistoris, says the Alter Rebbe. I can't talk here about these great, fantastic tzaddikim who are in Atzilus. I don't know anything about that. Sheim tzaddikim hagdoilim, sheim bebchinas merkava. Rak haniglas lanu. I want to talk about those mitzvahs that are in the revealed world. Sheachareim kol adam yimshech, which is where everyone should be. That should be the goal of every Oived Hashem. Leidan ne'emana, to know properly mehus umadreges avedus Hashem b'tchilu u'rechimu b'yizgalus liber. Every one of us is charged with a mitzvah to love Hashem, to be in awe of Hashem, and to use our mind. Hanim shochis mirabina v'das b'los ein seif baruch hu. So mikayma.
We also say the Alter Rebbe wrote the Tanya
For Benin, yeah.
For a purpose to deal for the masses. So he's not going to waste his time dealing with the few.
That's not.
People he could deal
Ein
with.
lanu esek, that's not the subject of this book, right? So mekayma biyutzfiris debriya. Those who serve Hashem with a intellectually driven set of emotions, it's bebriya. Aveda v'chil rechimu ativiyim shebemeiche biyutzfiris diyitzirah. Aval aveda b'liyas ayros chil rechimu. But someone who serves Hashem without arousing any sense of loyalty, any sense of love, afilu b'meiche, he doesn't is at least le'erer ha'ava ativis hamsoteres belev, awaken your avativis. Lohitzia me'ahelem vehestra level agilui. Afilu b'meichiv italuvis libi akoponim. At least in the recesses of your mind and heart. Rak, for a person who doesn't do that, not even in the basic way, Rachi nisheres mesuteres belev keteldoso. It's just buried in his heart, meaning he put in no effort. Whatever is in his DNA, it's in his DNA. He doesn't bother thinking about it, reflecting on it. It's not in his mind. It's in his heart. Every Jew has it. Fine, but I'm not putting in an iota of effort. It's the way it is. This type of avodah. Now, I just want to explain something for a minute. How is it possible? If a person is doing a mitzvah, so there's some type of hisayrus. Otherwise, I wouldn't do a mitzvah. I'm going to daven ma'ariv. So I motivated myself to daven ma'ariv. So what do you mean? There's avodah. The love that I have for Hashem, the instinctive love, is not buried, it's revealed. That's true. But that's the case only if a person is thinking about it. But a person who does a mitzvah by rote, meaning I'm used to it that when I go into shul, if the chazan says moedim, I say moedim. It's a totally thoughtless act. A person who wears tzitzis, he didn't take them off. They just, he's not. There's no thought whatsoever. There's no inspiration. There's no. So then, there's nothing wrong. He didn't do an aveira, but there's no. So then it's nesheres lamata. Yeah.
But
So
for the context, it doesn't seem like that he didn't have the thing. It seems like he's not
this
having it, but it seems like he's
the Alter Rebbe is saying.
Right, I get it, but I'm saying even with Adlazar, it seems like it's like he almost didn't think of it. Like
Right, exactly.
In a negative way.
Right.
So
And then he's going to speak about worse. Someone who does it for an agenda. For a side, Alter Rebbe is going down. It's a quick slope, sliding down. Rak he nisheres mas. Hare avedus un nisheres lamata ve'elam apirut. Such avedus Hashem remains in the gashmiistic world, separate from Hashem. Hanikra chitzonius ha'elamis. Ve'ein ba'koyach lales v'likolol b'yichudi yizbarach shen eses firis ha'kdoshis. Even though it's a mitzvah, a person said words of Torah. Today, let's say a teacher has a routine, but every day after davening, the kids say the Yud Beis Psukim. It's like autopilot. Right? They just go. So it's not a likus. There's nothing God. Because it's a physical act, it doesn't connect, it doesn't become a likus. If there's no emotion, feeling, connection, so it can't stand in front of Hashem. 5 more minutes, Rabbi say. V'hainu says the Alter Rebbe, this is true. Afilu im eine oisek shalei lishma mamish. This is even if he doesn't do it for an agenda. L'shum eze pniyah chas v'shalom. For an ulterior motive, God forbid. Ela kamesha kasu. But here, eisem eisi mitzvahs hanashim ulamada. It's a habit. By rote. Pirush, machmas hergel, shehurgel miktanusay, shehirgilei velimdei aviv, his father taught him, the rabbi, his teacher, leiras Hashem, ula avdai, to fear Hashem, to serve him, not to eat chveis, whatever, to wait between milk and meat, to wash, all these things, to say a bracha. So, ve'ene oisek lishma mamish, he's not doing it lishma. Now the Alter Rebbe says a very edel thing. Very edel thing. In this world, we're always, I'm sorry, this takes a few minutes. I'll try to be mekatzer. In this world, we always interact with other people. When people struggle, what is it? Some people they become more and more isolated. What does it mean to become isolated? That they don't know. They don't have a good relationship with give and take with other people. So they have trouble. So they move away from interacting with other people because for some people they overthink it or what. When a person does to do someone a favor, there has to be some love for them. Or you could say, wait a second, no, some people do a favor because they're intimidated by someone else. So then they're afraid of them.
Pleasers.
Right?
You're scared to say no.
A people pleaser. A true favor. If a person does something be'emes, they don't want anything back.
They're happy to do it.
Yeah, they appreciate the other person. They appreciate them. They're not. What's the word? Misogynistic. It's not a sadist. He's not. The word misogynistic is the wrong word. They're not.
Misanthropic.
They're not there to hurt themselves. Right? They're not. They're. So to do a toiva for real requires some love or some respect. There has to be something. Self-interest, then you didn't do a toiva. If you do something for self-interest, you didn't do it for him, you did it for you.
Right, if you're intimidated, for yourself.
So you did it for you. So that's what the Alter Rebbe is going to say. For a person to do a mitzvah for Hashem, it must necessarily have some avavir. Otherwise you wouldn't do it. Just like for another person. Let's see how he says it. Ki lishma mamish, to do something truly for someone else. This doesn't mean lishma mamish for the highest level of lishma. But just to do something lishma. Efshar, it's impossible. Some base of love and awe. At least in your mind. Those two words are the key. Bishvil chaveiroi. Not that you did it for you. A person doesn't do something for someone else, legitimately.
Not a stranger.
For someone else, to help someone, unless he's your friend, you love him. Afraid, you're in awe of them. So kach, in the same way, to do something for Hashem is impossible. Without some thought in your heart.
It's also like you could say, if someone does a favor for somebody, the person who you're doing the favor for, if he senses this insincerity, sometimes they're like, don't do me a favor. You don't want the person to do you a favor.
Exactly.
It's just saying the same thing.
Exactly.
If you're not doing the mitzvah, like if you're doing me a favor almost, then you know what? Maybe don't do it.
Let's see.
Your to-do list.
Right. Let's see if we could do this in 2 minutes. Finish the parak. You ready?
To-do list.
V'gam ava levado. If a person serves Hashem only driven by love, eino nikra b'shem avodo, b'li yira tato alafachis. There has to be some like I'm ready to help you even when it inconveniences me. Otherwise, it's not avodah. In other words, if you only do the mitzvahs that you like, I love Hashem, I only do the mitzvahs that I like. That's not avodah. It's not that you love you, but it's not avodah. Shehi mesoteres b'leiv kol Yisrael. We have yira. Kamishakasav l'kamon. If a person does a mitzvah with an ulterior motive, l'shumei zipniya, l'kavid atzmai, for his own honor and glory, k'gayin li as talmid chacham, u'chahai gavna, azai eisa pniya shemetzad haklipa, that ulterior motive mislabeshes b'teiraseh, והתורה היא בבחינת גולוס בתוך הקליפה לפי שעה, עד אשר יעשה תשובה, שמביא רפואה לעולם. Then the Torah is in prison. שבשובה אל Hashem, when you do tshuva, גם Torah say shava imay, the Torah that you learned returns. לכן אמרו רז"ל לעולם יעסק אדם וכו', a person should always learn Torah, even when it's for the wrong reason. שמתך שלא לשמוע, בוא לשמוע. שבוודאי ספר לעשות tshuva, of course eventually you'll do tshuva, whether it's בגלגול זה, בגלגול אחר, כי לידך ממנו נידך, we're all going to come back. So this is when he does it with an ulterior motive. Without thinking, you don't have to do tshuva. If you relearn this piece, lishma, it's all eila l'mayla. There's no klipa there. There's no negative force. That's why Hasidim had the custom that at least once a year they would daven the whole davening with intense kavanah. So they would daven a page, they would fold the page. This is where I'm up to. The next day they would do a little more, because that way at least once a year to daven everything with kavanah, so all the tefillas of the whole year are oila l'mayla. Okay, Chavre, Yasher Koyach.
Also, one davening for